Motorcycle Adventure Dirtbike TV is proudly supported by Adventure Spec in England, Rally Raid Products, Giant Loop in the United States, Adventure Moto in Australia, and Adventure Rider Magazine.
The 2020 Yamaha WR250 F is a race weapon. With outstanding power, mass centralisation, long travel suspension to take the big hits, and the latest remote engine management technology, in the right hands, this bike wins races. But in this test, I ask a very different question. Can this race weapon fulfil the role of a satisfying trail bike for an average trail rider? In this review, Andrew Clubb, also known as Clubby, and Clive Ward, known as the Professor, come with me on a trail ride to test this bike's credentials, not as a racer, but as a reliable pack horse that can take them anywhere, do a little play racing and dicing in the single trails, throw some mud, do some exploring and make some great memories. I'll also get young Matt, an ex-450 motocrosser, to give his thoughts on using this 250 race weapon as a trail bike.
Well, today, it's another hard day at the office. And what's going to be really good about today, 100 kilo dirt bikes. Brand spanking new 2020 WR250 F. Yamaha's awesome new trail enduro machine. Not only have we got one of them, we've got two of them. So right now, I'm following my good mate, the Professor. He's in the van in front. We're heading out to some of the Professor's secret trails for a leisurely day of top shelf trail riding on the WR250 F, and I cannot wait. It's going to be that good, is my prediction.
Clive, good to see you again, mate. What do you got for us?
Special. We've got today two 2020 WR250 Fs to play with.
Oh, God works hard. This is so hard. You look disappointed, Clubby.
Oh, I'm not disappointed at all. No, not at all.
Woohoo!
These race-bred bikes today will be trail riding. So we'll find some good spots to take you and show you around my local area.
He's got his GPS. This is looking good.
So the WR250 F, it's been around since before 2000, so really 20 odd years.
Now, Clive is known as the Professor for a reason. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Yamaha WR250 and lots of other bikes. And he went on to talk for ages about the various changes for the 2020 model. And it's all important, but I reckon we should catch up with Clive later in the video. But right now, it's time to ride the bikes. Clubby hasn't been on a trail ride for quite some time, as he's been focusing on getting out on the big adventure bikes. But it doesn't take him long to settle back into a very leisurely trail riding pace. Clive's picked some great trails for us, an entree of sweeping single, followed by a main meal of rocks with a side serving of rocks. We're heading to Clive's local lookout on a track littered with rocks, roots and washouts. And with Clubby lacking seat time, that bloke's heart is really starting to pump.
How good is it to be back out on the trails on an enduro bike? It's got to be 12, 18 months since I've really hammered the forest and got deep in the jungle with the Professor, with the Darcinator here. And mate, for a first time back into it, WR250 F. As I said before, it's been my bike of choice for trail enduro riding over the years. This one, big factors that you notice straight away, just lighter, leaner, more compact between your legs, and stronger in power for sure. Absolutely no shortage of horses for a 250F. Not as torquey, I'm going to make the call, as compared to my previous generation, the 15 model that I last had, but forgiving still in the very bottom part of the power band, in that it's still torquey enough, and as you've seen on some of the snot we've ridden to get up to here, to the lookout, still gives you enough there to get you up, get you out of trouble. But being light and lean, it changes lines at the drop of a hat when you flop on in the technical stuff, and then when you get in a bit more open, a bit more flowing, it's amazing just how much power this bike makes for a 250. And the big thing I've noticed about the power delivery on the 20 model, like not as torquey, make the call there, not as torquey right down the bottom compared to the last one, the 15, the previous generation that I had, but still super forgiving, this bike. First and second gear, like we've had pretty snotty, rocky uphills to get up here to the lookout, still forgiving enough that it will pull right off the bottom, get you out of trouble. And then the other big thing about it being a 250F, doesn't beat you up like a 450F, like larger capacity bikes in this kind of technical trail riding. Really enjoyable beast, just coming to grips with it. The only thing I don't want, a little less spinach in Popeye's forearm right here at the moment. 12 k's in and it's already solid up.
And this is what I love about trail riding, the unexpected. Clive's efforts could have turned real ugly, but he scraped through and another funny memory was made. And this is what trail riding is about, having fun with your mates, taking on the odd challenge, and getting out in the bush. Now here's another one of those off-the-cuff decisions to give it a go. Clive makes the summit with class, whilst Clubby's attempt frankly lacked commitment. Fortunately, no WR was injured in getting the captain off the mountain. Clive's final highlight for the ride was the infamous Mosquito Canyon.
Well, Professor's delivered. It's been an awesome day. And I reckon it's about to get a whole lot more awesome, judging by the look of this piece of chocolate cake in front of us, between the burnt out saplings. What's down here, Professor?
Oh, it's a little special trail. You'll love it.
Special. I love it when trail bosses use the word special, Dave.
Yes, I've used
multitude of meanings.
Afternoon.
All right, let's see what we get, eh? That's been an awesome day. Back on the Yamaha WR250 F, the 2020 model. First thing I've got to say is 2 thumbs up from the captain to the Professor. How good are the trails? We've done a grand total, I think, of 48 hero kilometres, but they've been awesome. Just a little bit of mix of everything. And a particular section, Mosquito Canyon, I think that'll feature prominently in some of Dave's upcoming work. So look out for that one. That's just fabulous. There's no need to say any more about Mosquito Canyon. It'll carve out its own reputation over time, I'm sure. As for the bike, I think the big thing it shows me after 6 hours, 50 k's of just serious off-road trail riding, it's definitely pushed the envelope of the WRF closer and closer and closer to the YZF and the YZFX cross-country race bike. And the big fact there is, as Clive said earlier, with all the Teco information, so much of the chassis, engine, suspension, detailed components now are all based directly off the WZ250F motocross model. And I think where it really shows out for trail riding, most of all, is in the suspension. The bike definitely works 1,000% better when you're 1,000% committed to riding harder, more confidently, aggressively on those kind of sections where it's rougher, rockier, bigger hits. You'll see that on the video that Dave's got today. The bike works its best the harder you go, the more confidently, more aggressively that you ride it, for sure. That's the biggest difference I've noticed between this bike, the new 20, and the 15 that I've had previously, and any of my other previous WRFs before that. Other than the suspension action being the big difference, the motor, still fabulous. Probably not right as torquey as the previous 15 model right off the very bottom, but then man, this thing just keeps revving and revving to the moon like any good 250F should. The ergos, slimmer, much slimmer between the knees, around your crutch area there, tank seat junction. I had a weird thing that my boot, the particular boots I'm wearing today, hooking up on the heat shield of the header pipe on the left side, but that's just a clunky little thing, that's my boot, and we can modify that heat shield to remove that issue. Other setups I would want would be bark buster, full alloy wrap bark busters for a little more protection. The riding today, just miles of single track, we're always dodging tree trunks, so just a little more protection there for me. And I'd say the only other thing would just be get the suspension valve a little bit plusher for trail riding. Man, I'd be in love again with my 250F, like always.
So this is my first real ride on this bike. I bought it without riding it. I had the 15 model. I've been waiting for the 20 model to come out. There was a lot of spec upgrades that I liked. The mapping system, the new frame, and the upgraded suspension. So I was keen to get it, and I'm very happy with it so far. I have made some changes to it already. I've put my Nikon bars on with the very fine bar metal and real thick grips, which help me with some of the things that are going on with my fingers and make it a lot easier for me to ride. And I will be putting radiator guards on and an aluminium bash plate, which I've ordered and waiting for them to come. And then I'm just going to put some decals on it so that it's recognisable as my bike, and pretty much just get out there and ride it as much as I can.
We didn't have to use that today, Clive.
No, I didn't. It is handy though.
It is handy. Mate, thanks for taking us out. It was a great day.
Well, it's a good day. Enjoyed it. You're very welcome.
We say goodbye to Clubby and Clive with some parting shots. First, Clive very unoriginally washing his bike. There is some truth to the rumour that Clubby has become a Barkbusters model, because dropping a bike in rocks like that could have easily led to the front brake lever being snapped off.
Captain's down!
As Clubby always says to me, "Keep it up, son, keep it up." And now we'll head back to Matt the motocrosser to see what he thinks about the WR250F.
Well, I've had Matt Stapleton from 4B Sessions Australia with me today to test out the 2020 WR250F. Matt, we've had some fun today in the mud, but it's been wet. But how have you found this bike?
Mate, you're always at home on a Yamaha. I've worked on Yamahas before, and they've brought out this all new bike, and wow, what a weapon of a little thing. Like, obviously I'm still riding a 450, but going straight to a 250 like this, we've got an enduro map, I believe you've got in it. So
yeah.
It's super punchy in that mid-range, even up top. Like it did run out a little bit, but wow, it was excellent. Even the forks, everything seems to work. Like it's a great package straight off the showroom floor, I guess you'd call it.
We went to jump over that mud puddle, and you jumped the mud puddle plus probably another 6 metres. Mate, it certainly hoots along, doesn't it?
It does, mate. And the best thing about it too, it's quite smooth at top speed as well. Like I've been giving this thing absolutely a massive razzing, and it takes every bit of it, and it'll just keep pulling all the way through. I'm really impressed with it. I'm blown away with the package that Yamaha have put together with this.
And I noticed too, like when you're in that single trail and I'm trying to get it on the big bike and you just leave me for dead. How good is it in that tight stuff?
Oh, mate, it feels, for the size of the bike, like obviously I'm not a very tall person, but the lower centre of gravity, it just seems to throw itself through those trails. You can just, the bike, you point it where the bike wants to, where you want to go, and the bike will go. Like it is absolutely unbelievable where this Yamaha will go.
Matty, you're a racer from the 450 class, so compare the power for us in terms of the two bikes.
Mate, with your 450, you always got mid-range, and it just, they're instant. It's quite snappy. But with this 250, you do have to work the clutch a little bit, but it still just pulls straight through. As you saw in probably some of this footage, you'll be able to see just by me flat changing through the gears and giving it a bit, it'll pop up on that back wheel straight away. It's really impressive. I guess the weight's the biggest difference too, is between the 450 and the 250.
Yeah.
This thing, you can throw it around like it's a little bike. It's unbelievable.
Okay, you come from a motocrossing background, but you certainly have done a lot of trail rides with me, and I know you do trail riding. How would you see this as a trail riding bike for someone?
Mate, I think it's a great trail riding bike. Like, considering I haven't been on a bike for a few months, and I'm definitely not bike fit as it's called, I feel good. I feel like I could keep riding with you for the rest of the day, and we've been up it. There's definitely no doubt about it. So I think it's a great all-round package. As far as a bike, straight from the crate. Look, you got your bark busters, you've got your sump guard with the increased radiator protection there. You got your thermofan. What else do you need in trails? You don't. That's just perfect. You just go buy your bike, pour fuel in it, and away you go.
Thanks, Matt, and great to see you.
Thanks for your time, Dave. It was great to be on the new bike.
So, a couple of parting shots. The first is Matt, suffering some mud puddle anxiety. And we've all been there. Do we go in? Do we not? And we know that four-wheel drives have been through here, and we all know that they can sometimes make the depth of those mud puddles over your bloody handlebars.
I'm not ready for this, it's too early. There we go.
Oh God, we don't know how deep that is. Yeah, he crosses himself. Here we go. Jesus, four-wheel drives have been through here. Looking good. Safety first.
Finally, we're having another shot at Mad TV Live on YouTube at 8 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time or 8 PM Greenwich Mean Time plus 10 hours on Sunday the 14th of June. Come and say hello, or if it's too early or late for you, watch the recorded version later. Oops, we've got to go back to Clive and talk about all the modifications and improvements to the 2020 WR250F.
The WR250F, it's been around since before 2000, so really 20 odd years, but it's changed quite a lot through the years. This is the 2020 version, which has changed more than a lot, really. When you first look at it, you see the blue and you think, yeah, it's just the same as the last one, but in actual fact, the only parts that have transferred over are the wheels and the speedometer. Everything else is different. The frame, the engine, the gearbox, the setup of the chassis, the suspension has come over from the YZ. In fact, nearly all of the parts of this bike have come over from the YZ, from the race bike. But it still makes an excellent trail bike, and we plan to prove that today. The biggest change from the 2015-18 model to this model is the frame through here. It's more or less a dead straight line now. The previous model, the frame came down and had an angle in it. This has strengthened the bike up, given more room in here to change the centre of gravity and to do the mass centralisation that Yamaha are always looking for. You can see there's more room around the engine. All of the exhaust is now enclosed completely within the frame, keeping all the weight centralised. The swing arm has been modified in length as to make the wheelbase the same, and they've lowered all the rear subframe to bring the bike down 10 mil overall from the previous models. The starter motor is now up the back and the kickstarter is gone, and this system is lighter than the previous system. The front and the ergos through here is going completely narrowed. They've taken 18 mil out of the bike, where the shroud intakes used to be quite wide. That's all been brought in, yet the radiators have been increased in capacity. Thermofan is standard. The handlebars have changed, as has the triple clamps, all to add to the geometry of the bike, and it now carries over the YZ forks, so the shock also carries over from the YZ. The reservoir has been increased in length to add more oil. but the overall distance of it is the same because the Schrader valve is now removed and they're using a needle fill system, so it doesn't take up any more space. The fuel tank has also been increased in size and now drops further down into this space in here. Anyone that's seen a 15 model would know there was a huge airing gap in there, and you could see all the electronics. That's all now sealed and covered up inside there. What they've been able to do is tilt the engine, and they've moved the engine mounts from the front to the back, so there's less room up the back here, but there's more room in through here, and it's been able to tilt the engine back and pull the exhaust back more and keep all of the weight more centralised. So the clutch has been strengthened but also lightened in its pull and action. Still running the cable clutch, which is easy to maintain, simple to fix and very effective, and has a very light pull now. The fuel injection system has changed completely. Completely different brand, now Mikuni over Cayenne, and this is the new cold start button. Just press and lock, hit the button. When you flick the throttle, it will release. One of the features of the new Yamaha is being able to tune the engine, fuel and ignition system yourself with a downloadable app, the Yamaha Power Tuner app. So I'll run you through connecting to it. We'll just excite the system and get it up and running. Select the bike. Go to Wi-Fi and select the Power Tuner, which is now connected. And you've got a range of things you can change at the bottom. You can look at the live data, voltages, temperatures, pressures, RPM when it's running. You can set reminder notes for service and record service points. You can also change any of the units and restore and backup files. You can keep a race log on here, and of course we can do the mapping. So this is a map we've been playing with. On the left here's the injection, on the right here's the ignition. Each of these points of +3 is 3% more fuel for that point in time where you've set it. Ignition, each one is one ignition timing point. You can see the map as a 3D map, and you can highlight and change any point that you like. So what we have on here is throttle position and RPM, and then it corresponds to that way across. You can change any of these points, but you don't have to be a professor. If you don't want to play with this, you can copy maps, share maps with friends, download maps off websites. Yamaha supply a range of maps on their own website. So you can store a range of maps. This one I've called Cross Country, which is going to be a general trail riding and enduro map. You can make one for motocross, for sand riding, for gnarly riding, in tight single track where you want a lot of traction, and then you can just quickly change between the maps. The other feature is you can load 2 maps into this bike, and you can change from one map to the other by pressing this blue button up here. It takes you from map 1 and map 2. So you can develop a range of maps for all different riding conditions. You could have one just for riding motocross, and then the very next day you could be out trail riding with your mates in the gnarliest, slipperiest surface and switch between maps, having 2 of them loaded into the bike. Or you can have as many maps as you want loaded into your phone and just load the maps within minutes from your phone straight in and change as often as you like.
Looks awesome, this 20 model. So much differences I've noticed compared to the previous 15, the previous generation model that I had. One thing, Professor, what's your opinion on the removal of the kickstarter for a bike that will be used a lot for trail riding applications?
I'm not a huge fan. I would prefer to see the option for a kickstarter. The main reason is when you have a failure of the electrics in the middle of the bush, it can be hard to start. And if you drown them, when you get the water out of them, you get the water out of the air filter and you start kicking them over, it takes a fair while to get them to restart after they've been drowned. And not having that kickstarter can be a bit of a problem. And usually you're not going to tow start it because you're in the bottom of a ravine or something when you've drowned it. But it does save a lot of weight, and they have got them pretty reliable now. Batteries are better, that's the way every bike seems to be
Yeah,
going
a
at
lot
the
of them
moment.
doing it now, huh?
It's pretty hard to find one that has a Kickstarter on it now.
So a lot of differences. I like the point you make about the frame backbone being a lot reshaped now, and a lot more access that I noticed compared to the 15 around the motor, around the exhaust, the changes there with the starter motor, the motor being moved slightly in the frame. What about Airbox, Professor? Any changes there compared to my previous model?
Well, they've narrowed the whole bike up.
Yeah,
So on the
that's
previous
obvious.
model, this whole piece used to come off to get to the air filter. Now it's just one little piece.
Yep, seat pops out like before. Oh,
There's
that
one
is
diesel
so much
clip
better.
at the top here.
Yep, used to
There's
be
two
three.
little clips under it, so you've got to just pop it with your fingers,
Yep.
and there's your air filter.
Yeah, that is different, huh? Yeah, and better. That's much better.
And those other ones, you
Yeah,
used
that-
to lose the little rubber bit at
Yeah,
the front,
been there, done
and
that.
or
Yep.
to get stuck up. You
Yep.
don't have to pull any of that off now
Yep.
to access it.
Yeah, improvement, eh? What about fuel capacity? It's up by what? Is it between half, 1 litre? How much?
So it's gone up to 7.9, which is about 700 mil more.
More, yep.
So that's a 10% increase.
Yeah, sure. And they were always good on juice too. Economy was great, wasn't
The
it?
250s were always good. Yeah.
yeah.
You could easily get 100 k's out of
Yeah,
one.
for trail ride, yeah. No, good mate, good. No, can't wait to ride it, mate. It's going to be a good day. Cannot wait. Another point that I loved about the 15 model was the adjustable choice of bar mount positions. That's carried over again, Prof.
Sure is.
And we all liked the bars forward on the previous model. I noticed this one's been set with the bars in the rear position.
Yeah, well you've got 4 positions because these
Yeah,
are
reversible.
reversible.
Yep.
So you've got the front and back position and the reversible of both of these clamps. On the previous model, yes, I preferred to run mine forward, and I also ran some bar spacers to get it a bit higher.
Higher, yep.
But on this model, with everything being different and the shape
Yeah.
of the bars being different,
Yep.
I am really liking it the way it is here in the back position. But bigger guys that want a bit more cockpit space
Yep.
will move it forward and maybe raise them up as well to get that space that they're looking for.
And what about peg position? Any changes there that you've noticed on this new model? Anything different in that regard? How they
Not
feel
that
on
I've
the bike?
noticed.
No.
Another big change is the big mechanical speedo drive with the large cable that ran all the way up through here that used to catch on trees and drive us all crazy is gone. So we now have an electronic sensor that sits in here and one cable that follows the brake line all the way up and up into the speedo. So standard with your bike is a brake snake and also this pretty comprehensive plastic bash plate. They're fairly strong and they run right up and protect all of the hosing and the water pump now.
Okay.
So the platform of this bike is based very, very heavily on the YZ. One of the big differences between the YZ250F and this bike is the 6-speed gearbox, which is also in the FX model, which is the Enduro version.
Hi, Darren Thompson here from Yamaha Australia Technical Services. Just got a hot little tip for people that own WR250 and 450s. It's regarding hot starting. Here we have a couple of marks on the throttle housing cover. As you can see them just here, and then you follow the line where the grip is impregnated with it. For hot start, you line those 2 marks up and they start straight away. That's the way they've been designed, that's the way it's written in the owner's manual, which not many people read, but starts first go then. Hi, I have another little tip to let everyone in on. This unit has just been returned back to Yamaha Australia, and first glance I noticed someone has taken the spark arrestor out of it and the end baffle piece. You know, for one, that's illegal to have out. You can start bushfires, it arrests sparks that come out from the engine. Secondly, by taking this out, you're actually going to lose some bottom end torque from your engine. And not only that, it makes the bike quite a lot noisier, and all you're doing is just upsetting people, neighbours, you know, properties that you ride through, and it's not going to be good for the sport.
For those new to Motorcycle Adventure Dirtbike TV, this channel is about sharing our adventures, testing bikes and filming expert riders. Click on some of these links to see what we have to offer. In the coming weeks we will present a detailed review of the 2020 KTM 790 Adventure R and continue with our series on the Yamaha Tenere 700 called All Things Tenere, that gets a bunch of expert engineers and long-time motorcycle adventurers who all love the Tenere to talk of their tips and modifications.